Hello, loved ones. We have a good heroic African legacy for you today. It's about a brother who's not very well known. His name is Louis Pacheco. He was born into slavery on December 26, 1800. His parents were pure-blooded Africans who were captured in Africa and sold into slavery. The reason we remember Louis today is because of his role in the Dade Massacre. According to the U.S., the Dade Massacre marked the start of the Second Seminole War, and the Black Seminoles and the Seminole Indians started it. According to Black historians and the Lionized Seminole Duel, the destruction of Negro Fort marked the start of the Second Seminole War, and white people started it, and we agree with the latter. But that's a debate for another day. In any case, the Dade Massacre was an ambush by the respective Seminole Duel that resulted in the absolute slaughter of Major Francis Dade and his entire platoon of U.S. soldiers. Louis Pacheco went down in history for leading Major Dade and his men into this ambush. We're going to focus on Louis's involvement in the massacre, but let me fill you in on Louis's early life. He was born on a plantation owned by Francis Philip Pacheco. Louis's father, Adam, was very valuable on the plantation because he was skilled and intelligent. His skills were boat building, carpentry, and he was a driver. He also could read and write in Spanish, French, and English. He passed all his skills and knowledge on to his son, Louis Pacheco. However, Louis eventually learned a fourth language, the language of the Seminole Indians, from his brother who was stolen from the plantations by the Seminoles while he was very young. Louis also had a sister who lived amongst the Seminole Indians. When Louis was growing up, he had a habit of running away to go live amongst the Seminole Indians with his brother and sister. Consequently, he ended up mending a relationship with the Seminoles of his own. Sources also say Louis got married at a very young age. He married an ebony beauty who was enslaved by Romano Sanchez of St. Augustine. Sometime after buying her freedom for 300 pesos, he ran away to live with her in St. Augustine, where he remained until Spain ceded Florida to the U.S. Then Louis Pacheco was captured near Tampa, Florida by U.S. soldiers and sold to illiterate Colonel George M. Brooke. And I'm not calling this colonel illiterate to be disrespectful. He really was illiterate. He couldn't read, which means Louis was more intelligent than his master. In any case, Colonel Brooke needed Louis as an interpreter. So as you can imagine, an interpreter who can read and write 4 different languages must have been very valuable to Colonel George Brooke. So he wasn't just happy, but lucky to own our brother Louis Pacheco. In any case, between 1829 and 1835, Louis was sold to 2 more military officials and a Cuban merchant who owned a trading post. On December 23, 1835, he was hired by Captain John C. Casey for $25 a month to guide Major Francis Dade and about 100 soldiers to Fort King as reinforcements in anticipation of a war with the Seminoles. I'm going to read you a segment directly from SmileYourBlack.com blog post, The Black Seminoles and Their Pursuit of Freedom, Part 2. In Dade's fanciful dreams, he imagined himself as an Anglo wielder of conquest with overwhelming power to pursue and subdue the displaced children of Mother Africa and their native allies. With total confidence in his misguided zeal, he chose Louis Pacheco to lead him to the Seminole Indians in this ill-natured endeavor. Pacheco himself was one of the children of Mother Africa who, unfortunately, was enslaved by a Spanish family. However, he was brilliant. He could speak, read, and write in Spanish, English, French, and the Seminole language. Before falling victim to the conditions of slavery that Dade found him in, Pacheco lived amongst the Indians. While living amongst the Indians, he learned their language and mended a relationship with them. A relationship his natural sense of loyalty bid him to betray, far be it from an honorable man. So he informed the Seminoles of the route through which he planned to lead Major Dade and the soldiers that were following Dade. Unaware of the shadow of death looming over their ironically high-held head, Dade and his proud men departed from Fort Brooke armed for death with muzzle-loaded rifles, flintlock muskets, Colt revolvers, lead bullets, and malice in their hearts. As Dade and his legion of soldiers pursued this skewed scheme of treachery through piney land filled with tall grass, the breath of death, perceived to be a cool breeze, gave him a chill as it blew across the back of his naked neck. Suddenly, the melodramatic sound of the birds chirping and tall blades of grass blowing in the wind came to an abrupt end as 180 onyx-fleshed guerrilla soldiers and native warriors led by Abraham and Macanaki leaped up from the ground, relinquishing round after round at the patrol of U.S. soldiers. Instantly, Dade hit the ground filled with multiple rounds of lead as dark as the pupils of the rage-filled eyes of the onyx-fleshed soldiers that sent the bullets of vengeance his way. Pacheco, the sly genius, also lay down, but not in decease like the pale-skinned grunts he led to their demise. He only laid down to play dead until he could join his onyx-fleshed brethren in this glorious moment of triumph over oppression. As for the rest of the soldiers, the impulse of panic compelled them to scramble and search for safety as bullets engulfed and drove the souls from their doomed flesh. To their dismay, safety was not in sight. Only a few even found a moment to shoot back before being introduced to the real supreme power. At the end of this triumphant moment in history, only 2 U.S. soldiers survived. After the Dade Massacre, Lewis went to live amongst the Seminole Indians. Incidentally, in 1837, he was captured by the U.S. during the capitulation of the Seminole Nation of Indians and their allies. He was one of the hundreds of black Seminoles who reported to U.S. military bases for immigration, only to find out that General Jesup betrayed them and was planning to have them all returned to slavery. After the Seminole Indians realized the black Seminoles had been betrayed by Jesup, they attacked the military bases holding their onyx-fleshed comrades and helped most of them escape. Lewis, however, was not amongst the black Seminoles who escaped. He was set free by rule of law. You see, at the time of Lewis's captivity, there was a lot of disputes between white settlers and Seminole Indians over the ownership of enslaved Africans that often led to plantation raids. In other words, white settlers often ended up with Africans on their plantations that Seminole Indians accused the settlers of stealing from them. When the settlers refused to return the enslaved African to the Seminole Indian, the Seminoles would raid the plantations, set fire to them, kill a few white people, and take the African back by force. To reduce the number of plantation raids, the courts of Florida Territory passed a law that said whenever there's a dispute between a settler and an Indian over the ownership of an enslaved African, the courts will give the African to the Indian and pay the settler for their losses. Lewis, like many other intelligent Africans, took advantage of this law by consulting his Indian comrades, having one claim him, and getting himself set free as the property of the Indian. Upon his release, he migrated west with the Seminoles to the Indian reservation in Arkansas. Lewis's age of death is unknown, but we do know he lived to be at least 92 years old, because at the ripe old age of 92, he did an interview with a newspaper reporter in which he told the reporter he had nothing to do with the Dade Massacre. In Lewis's lifetime, he never once confessed to setting up Major Dade and his men to be ambushed, but General Jesup has been documented saying the U.S. knows without a doubt that Lewis was in constant contact with the Seminole Indians the entire time he was part of Dade's campaign, and the U.S. Army knows without a doubt Lewis intentionally led Dade into the ambush. Lewis probably never confessed because he was afraid of being hung by white people if he did. Well, that's the end of the Heroic African Legacy of Lewis Pacheco. Peace and blessings, family.